The first test in 1981 between New Zealand and Scotland here at Carisbrooke in Dunedin. The weather is not good. Here's our commentators, Keith Quinn and Graham Thorne.
It's a Scotch and water day for Test rugby. The Scottish touring team come to Carisbrooke, Dunedin for the first test of their two-test series and are greeted by a day of steady falling rain. And the test match will be played on a pitch that, though well grassed, will be slippery and slidey for sure. So both teams will look to all their players for sure hands and footing in the heavy going. The New Zealand team has had two major upsets since selection. Andy Hayden is under suspension, and at lock he'll be replaced by another giant, Hud Rickett of Waikato, who comes in for his first test. Rickett locks the scrum with Higginson, making them an inexperienced pair at this level with just one international between them. But all around them in the New Zealand pack are All Blacks of true quality. Mexted, Shaw and Graham Murray hunt well together for the loose forward positions, while up front Knight, Dalton and Cattels are toughened front rankers. Dave Loveridge will set the backs moving from half back. Outside of him, Eddie Dunn has his second test match. Andy Jefford, the birthday boy today, plays his first test. And there's a fast and skillful three-quarter line of Fraser, Robertson and Wilson. The second upset for the New Zealanders in their preparation came yesterday with the late withdrawal of the selected fullback David Halligan. A late arrival to replace him, also getting his first cap, is Wellington's Alan Hewson. The Scottish team have among their lineup twice as many international caps as the New Zealanders. Their team is captained from fullback by the great Andy Irvine, who's not appeared in a major match on this tour so far, but who looked to be stretching out to top fitness in training yesterday. In front of Irvine is a team with strength in the backs with players like Hay and Cranston, who they may be suited to the wet conditions today. Munro, the winger, is speedy and skillful. Jim Rennick has his 40th international cap at centre. Laidlaw and Rutherford, the halfbacks. In the forwards, Ian Paxton, in number 8, is the only new cap in the team. Cuthbertson and Toombs, the locks, have good form from the recent international series. And Calder and Leslie, the flankers. The front row, Jim Aitken and Ian Milne, the props, with Colin Deans, the hooker. Well, even though Carisbrooke has not been played on for 3 weeks in preparation for this showpiece day of Otago's rugby centenary year, the ground has soaked up a lot of water overnight and this morning. In conditions like this, games often become a lottery of kick, rush and hope. Joining me today for his test debut as a commentator is 1967-70 All Black Graham Thorne.
Well, I think these conditions are tailor-made for the All Black loose forward trio of Murray, Mexted and Shaw. The ball's going to be slippery and on the ground a lot, and New Zealand can expect Murray to be the first of that scattered play with Shaw and Mexted right behind him. We can expect to see Andy Irvine tested. He's never played well against New Zealand. He's had a history of being vulnerable under the high ball, and in these conditions can expect a lot of pressure. But I believe that Irvine holds the key to the game as far as Scotland is concerned. If he plays a blinder, Scotland are in with a big chance.
That's the scene underneath the Carisbrooke tunnel as the all-white All Blacks in 1981 come out to play this first international. The home team changes colour. There they are, the 15 men of New Zealand playing this first international of two. Big Bernie Fraser as Andy Jefford. The Scots arriving from the other dressing room, and you can see they're changing sides into run out, which means the All Blacks have won the toss and elected to play into the wind for the first 40 minutes of this windswept match. Well, in fact, the way the wind is going at the moment is swirling about Carisbrooke, and it looks like New Zealand will actually play with it more in their favour because the wind is actually coming over the shoulders of our view here and blowing straight across the park just at this particular moment. But it's a soaring, swirling wind. Well, a big day for this man, 28-year-old Hud Rickett of Waikato, a man who spent most of his adult life touring around in supporters groups and on his own around the world to see the All Blacks play. He's turned up on about 4 overseas tours and in fact played against the All Blacks for Queensland in 1974. Rickett in for his first test match today. A vital man in the Scots team will be the man who'll kick off for them, John Rutherford, a tall and elegant fly half who's controlled things well as a kicker in the matches in New Zealand. But in the Home Nation series recently, which is seen out here on television, he was mostly a runner. The question in today's conditions that Andy Irvine, the Scots captain, will have to decide whether to run it or kick it today. Today's referee is Dick Byers of Australia, and it's Andy Irvine who begins the first test match on a windy and rain-swept Carisbrook ground in Dunedin, and touching down as the late replacement in the All Black team coming in for his first test match at fullback from the Petone Club in Wellington, Alan Hewson. A penalty to New Zealand from that attempted dropout from the 22. I think it was always in a scrum.
The thing is now he can award this penalty anywhere along that line, and Graham Murray's taking the penalty as close as he wants to the far side so that it's closer to the touchline. The 25, it's where the ball is going to be kicked off, where the penalty is given, and as you can kick the ball away from any part of that 22, that's why the penalty was over there.
So that was a Scotsman who interfered with the dropout 22. The numbers now for you: Dave Leslie, number 6, Graham Murray, number 7, Graham Higginson, 4, and Murray Mexted, number 8 for New Zealand. Big jump there from Rickett. Number 8 for Scotland is their new cap, Ian Paxton. Number 6, Leslie. Number 7, Jim Calder. And that's Gary Knight, the New Zealand prop forward of the ball. Rucked over the top. Higginson plays halfback. Whistle, and the Scots players are offside just beyond the ruck. And it looked like it was Rutherford or Rennick, or possibly both. And so the second penalty of the match goes to New Zealand. Now remember, the wind is blowing from the view you have more or less across to the other touchline at a slight angle. And Alan Hewson will have a difficult job. And this one, Graham Thorne, might be a bit of a sighter for him from that far back.
Well, it's a long way, but the ball is still light. He's kicking across the wind, so he'll have to aim to the right-hand post and try and slot it towards the left-hand post.
A left-footed kicker. Second minute of play. Alan Hewson. That's how windy it is. Loveridge, Eddie Dunn, Bruce Robertson. That's Roy Laidlaw, the Scots halfback, coming across. Good pass and control by the New Zealand forwards and Dave Loveridge. Now let's look at these big beefy forwards as they line up for this next line out. Rod Cattell's at front with Ian Milne, Bill Cuthbertson with the beard, Graham Higginson, Gary Knight, Jim Aitken, Tomes and Rickett. Andy Dalton, a good throw to Murray Mexted, but the whistle's gone, wasn't straight. Good leap by the athletic Murray Mexted at the back of the New Zealand scrum. Scored a try against Scotland in his last international against them. Number 9 is Roy Laidlaw for Scotland. Colin Deans is his hooker. This is Rutherford. Now Rutherford does not have a left foot, but he's got to the right. A block by Stuart Wilson on the right wing. Calder back to Laidlaw. And it was Laidlaw who got the kick away to touch.
You can see when Stu Wilson lost his footing there, it's very slippery on top. It's not going to get made this ground, so the ball is going to be a little difficult to handle. But so far, New Zealand have controlled the ball in the mauls and rucks, and Scotland haven't really touched it at all.
Let's look at the big earth movers, skyscrapers and terriers that make up the two forward packs today. Here's Hud Rickett, behind him Calder, Tomes, Paxton, Mark Shaw, Murray Mexted, David Leslie, and of course Graham Murray at the back for New Zealand. Loveridge to Dunn. Andy Jefford, it went forward. Number 3 for Scotland is Ian Milne. Injury break. Injury break there. The New Zealand backs consulting. The man who had the ball that time was Andy Jefford, the second 5'8". And it's in fact Andy Jefford's 28th birthday today, coming from the Tokomaru Bay United Club, the smallest union in New Zealand. And his test debut today, had 2 games last year, turns 28 today, and is the first East Coast rugby player to play test rugby for New Zealand since George Napier 51 years ago. Set to go again after that short injury break. The delay by Roy Lager is a technical offence, a free kick there. Now, that wind is doing all sorts of things. That was the previous kick by Hewson. They're looking for the man with the right foot, I think. Now they changed their mind again and give it to Hewson. He's a left-footed kicker, remember, and it's going to that left-footed side. Well, a difficult day for Hewson. Only made it to the ground at 7 o'clock last night and had that awkward early kick, but that's a better confidence booster for him. Volundines to throw. Rickett and Combs are the 2 number 5s. A knock on in the line out. Scrum 5 metres out. Time gone, 6 minutes, no score. This is David Leslie. Scottish team over the top. Rutherford, a good long kick that time by John Rutherford.
Well, New Zealand have attacked for the whole game so far, and Scotland haven't had much of the ball yet, but they've got the win in the second half. New Zealand have to score points in this first half.
So Scotland haven't won clean line-out ball yet. Thornton, the different one, that was the short and fast throw to Higginson. Murray to Dunn to Jefford. Advantage being played here. This is David Loveridge, New Zealand halfback, playing his 8th test match today. Roy Laidlaw playing his 9th. Laidlaw, number 9 for Scotland, having an Achilles tendon problem right throughout this tour. Midfield still in Scottish territory. The Scots have not yet been into New Zealand territory, but now they are for the first time. And Alan Hewson going right back to the 22.
I think he did the right thing. He was in the no man's land there, and although he ran back 15 metres to get inside the 22, he still gained at least 20 metres.
Dalton trying to leg allowances for the win. Eddie Dunn. Bernie Fraser going down the left wing side, chasing hard. Andy Irvin. That was Bernie Fraser who went racing through the shot. And Andy Irvin, the most experienced international on the field. This is his 51st test match with 42 for Scotland, 9 for the British Lions. So the lineouts will be of concern to the Scots. They have not yet won a clean lineout ball. Not straight. Well, let's see the scrums here, because the Scots have a very big and burly front row. Aitken, Deans and Milne. It's Milne on the tight head side. Number 1 is Jim Aitken against Gary Knight. He swung that kick in field, has Rutherford. Blowing about in the wind. Tightrope stuff from Alan Hewson, and he's just showing us all that he's got a right boot. So a steady start so far from the Batoni man. Scott's obviously realising that in Houston they've got a man who's perhaps affected by nerves a little more than the others. That's line-out ball for the first time. Laidlaw's got it awkwardly. 3 is Gary Knight. Loveridge. Another very fine kick indeed by Alan Hewson. His last game for the All Blacks, he was carried off in Italy, and I'm sure the 3 men you saw briefly there, the New Zealand selectors, will be pretty pleased with the way he's begun in his first Test match. Turning it around and driving it. Loveridge taken nicely off the ground. Eddie Dunn, a short little dink ahead of Irvin. And they've got him. This is Deans through and offside. Offside, Colin Deans. Another shot at goal for Alan Hewson, but once again, Graham Thorne, not a great cause for confidence, because even at 30 metres out with the wind crossfield and blustery, it's going to be an awkward one for him.
The wind doesn't seem to know what it wants to do. If you watch here as the replay comes out, you see that back came Cattell's to pick it up, but the offside, Colin Deans, was picked up there by the referee. It's not an easy kick for Alan Hewson at all.
So far, 4 penalties to New Zealand, none to Scotland. Time gone, 11 minutes, first half. So Alan Hewson puts New Zealand on the board after 11 minutes, 3-0.
So far, Alan Hewson's done nothing wrong. He's taken all the kicks that have been boomed down him, and he's kicked some great touch finders as well, and it's all good for his confidence. With coming in at 7 o'clock the night before a test without having a run with an All Black side, it's very hard to get into a test match that way.
So once again, Irvin has made a short little trick kick into centre field. That's Andy Jefford running it out. Missed at halfway by Rutherford. Knock on. Good solid scrum. Number 7, Jim Calder, is trying to stay bound with his arm fully over and into the scrum. Now to Dunn. Stabbing at his kicks and bouncing it out.
That seems to be the tactic already done now. He's just putting the little kicks up. They're hanging up in the wind a bit and getting the players up to force the errors from Scotland.
Come on.
22-metre line to the right. 13 minutes gone. Loveridge finding Dunn. Leslie made the tackle to Higginson. Nicely ruck ball. Blindside. Hewson with the left boot. Went off Irvin's shoulder. Down to midfield. Wilson. Some fierce Scottish tackling. That was Eddie Dunn. It was crunched in midfield by Irvin. Dalton. Loveridge. Lots of Scottish defence coming across. Fraser and Munro. Murray. Wilson right over from the right wing trying to carry it on. Good play by New Zealand.
Well, New Zealand have almost got a stranglehold on the loose ball so far in this match. You can see how they control it there and then decide to run it. And Bruce Robertson there on the outside too.
Palmed down by Alan Tomes. And that's the first penalty of the game, coming up to 14 minutes to Scotland. guess in conditions like this, it's more important than ever to be committed and unified and thought and deed before in the early stages of a test match, and the New Zealand team have made a good strong beginning. Laidlaw, Murray, Leslie, this is Jim Rennick. Oh, good sidestep by Rennick. 13 is Alistair Cranston. Scotland have got the ball on their own this time. How can they win this one? Looked like Ian Milne under there, and they've rucked it for Laidlaw. That might be out on the full. It is. Andy Urban said before the game that the Scots might not get much ball to play with, and that they do get, they might have to run. But in weather conditions like this, that's going to be doubly difficult. And so an anxious moment there for Rutherford. He elected to kick and put it out on the full.
7-2-9.
"15 minutes gone in the game. Just that penalty goal to Alan Hewson." Laidlaw kicking ahead, Munro and Rutherford chasing. That's a knock on by Alan Hewson coming forward. The ball bouncing in front of him. And you're getting a bit of a pat on the back as he goes back from his teammate from Wellington, Bernie Fraser. 3 Wellington backs in the team, Wilson, Fraser and Hewson.
Come on, 7-4-8. The other one.
Rutherford, they are running it. This is Crash Cranston, the centre, Alistair Cranston out to Rutherford. Going down the blind side alley. Mexted made the tackle. Cranston's up and into the action again, number 13. Laidlaw, this is the Scots fighting back. Rutherford showing a bit of flair. High ball into the midfield. Murray was there. Urban. Could have been dangerous if he'd got his hand to it.
Well, Andy Irvine, the first time he'd come up into play there, and it looked like Scotland had got control there. They won 2 rucks in a row and were getting the ball along. I think perhaps Rutherford should pass the ball more than kick it.
Andy Dalton's not down. No Otago players in the team with the late withdrawal of Dave Halligan. But, of course, the Otago people might be claiming Andy Dalton being Dunedin born.
With the headband.
Andy Dalton, number 2. Went to school here in Dunedin. His father was an All Black, of course, in the late 40s. Halfway line just to the left. 18 minutes gone and Dalton is in the play. 2 hookers, Andy Dalton and Colin Deans. They played against each other in the international in 1979, but there was a line-out penalty there to Scotland. And here's Andy Urban, really thinking big. He's going to have a shot at goal. That's the halfway line. Now, don't scoff at this one, because I remember what he put over the very first minute of the test match in Wellington for the Lions in 1977, a windy and wet day.
Well, it's a pretty optimistic kick, but as one of our commentators said, when Bill Pruitt had a go in 1968 in Wellington, he wouldn't have a show of getting it and it sailed between the bar.
Referee Dick Byers having a look at his watch. That's going to have to be placed. That's how strong the wind is. The Scots don't have much luck with the weather with their internationals in New Zealand, do they? Boom! Well, that was a pretty good effort. He kept it low, using his soccer background. Remember, Andy Irvine played soccer till he was 16, and that would be a shock to the New Zealanders to see that one go that close. Charge down. The ball didn't look like it went over the 22. Advantage applied. Out to Stu Wilson. Bruce Robertson staying in support. He made a kick. Bruce Hay, number 11. Well, Stu Wilson making his first appearance for the All Blacks on this ground, showing a lot of flair there. Here they go again. This is the end on view. The little kick by Wilson was deflected from Hay, and Robertson tried to keep it going with soccer. Coming in there to speak to one of the Scottish players, Jamaican, very hard man in the prop position for Scotland. Jefford was through very quickly, deflected the ball straight up into the air. Murray claims it. 21 minutes gone in the first half of the wet and windy test match. Just the Houston penalty to New Zealand so far. Running it, Rennick. Irvine up, Munro. Oh, Munro nearly made a catch there. That's Steve Munro in competition with Alan Houston for the ball. Well, anything could have happened there if he'd snatched that one in the air off Alan Houston. Midway between the half and 22. New Zealand leading in the line-out count by 6-2 in cleanly won ball. That's another one. Running it to Jefford. He was behind the 22. That's a good kick by Andy Jefford. Throwers have really got to allow for the breeze here. Blows about a bit. That's one good one for Hud Rickett. Loveridge. Good run. Murray. Gary Knight. But a knock on. Or was it a forward pass from Loveridge to Murray?
Well, Murray knocked it on, couldn't recover it. It was picked up by Gary Knight, but the knock on was picked up by Dick Myers.
Jim Calder, Laidlaw, Irvine. Yes, the Scots have decided to throw caution to the wind and rain and run it. Someone is down, and it could be Andy Irvine. Let's have a look. Away to the right by halfway. It's Irvine, and referee Byers is calling someone out. And he's speaking to Bernie Fraser.
I think it was Bernie trying to stop the pass that Andy threw out to his right to Munro, and as he tried to keep the pass down, I think he just took Andy out of play.
Rennick. This is Bruce Hay from the left wing. He lost it forward. Called the kicking through. This is Bruce Hay, the man, an anonymous member of the Scottish touring team, asked me to say, please call him the Flying Gut. That's his nickname on tour. Scots have given themselves the little nicknames which they have on the front of t-shirts for team meetings, and that's the one they've dubbed on Bruce Hay, very experienced player indeed on the left wing, having his 22nd test match today. So the Gary Knight working hard there in the disruptive role of tight head prop. This is Ian Paxton to Laidlaw. The Scots are going well when they run. Calder have to go over the top of Fraser. Munro, a great sidestep, very close to the corner. Penalty, I think. That's Ken Smith and Jim Telfer, the Scottish management. They're worried and looking anxiously to that corner to see what that was all about. And Munro, Graham Thorne, must have gone very close.
Yes, it looked like he was going to make the line, but the referee penalised him for playing the ball after the tackle ball rule. That's what the here it comes now. You can see that the ball comes out to Calder, and there's Munro outside him. Now, if you watch the line coming up, he drops inside. It looks like he's tackled there. He's short of the line. Well, the referee made the decision.
There is a law that the momentum can count in a dive for the line.
Come on, dick away!
So that will be one maybe the Scots will have some comment about later on. Nexted got up. Loveridge. I think the interesting thing, Graham Thorne, is that the Scots, when they have run it, have looked a different team.
They've got to run. They're not going to win the battle for the loose ball. Murray and Mexted and Shaw are going to be ahead there. They've got to use all the ball that they get well, and they can't afford to kick it away.
Coming up to 26 minutes. Coming from the other side of the field now. Zervin. And he's having another shot at goal.
Well, this one is probably a little easier than the other one because he's kicking right into the eye of the storm. The wind is coming right at him from between the posts and right down the line. All he's got to do is kick it straight, and it probably won't float about as much as it would kicking across it.
Time to let it bounce. This is Wilson. He always likes to have something different up his sleeve. Alan Hewson's kick down to Irvin. Oh, he collided with Munro. Rutherford. Well, Andy Irvin was about to start off on one of his instinctive little jinks, but his own man was the one he jinked into. The right winger, Steve Munro. The line-out ball is still favouring New Zealand, with Higginson and Ricketts getting good ball. 9 clean line-outs to 2. That one was in the wind. Looking along the halfway line. Roy Laidlaw trying to ruck it clear. There are the New Zealand selectors, Mr. Stan Hill, Bryce Rope and Peter Burke to the right, watching very stern looks from the stand. Laidlaw, Rutherford. That kick is coming infield. Hewson. Cranston and Rennick, the two centres there. And Leslie diving through over the top, David Leslie. Mark Shaw arriving late. Cranston is number 13. Bernie Fraser having his say as well. So Ian Milne is number 3 on the far side of the front row for Scotland. He's really trying to work Rod Cattell's up and down. Cattell's, of course, must make the channel clear for the hooker to have the view. Good weight from Scotland. Laidlaw through on Hewson. Well, Alan Hewson, when he was last on this ground for Wellington, kicked 5 goals here. I'm sure the conditions were vastly different to what they are today. 1 success so far for Hewson. Half an hour gone, 3-0 to New Zealand. Rickett getting his big arm sweeping over the top. Minutes gone. Palm by Alan Tomes. Awkward ball. Dalton gumboots it ahead to Irvin. And Murray Mexted knocked it on. So 10-metre mark, New Zealand territory.
Neither side have really taken control of this test. The All Blacks started well with control, then Scotland went through a good period, but in the last 5 minutes neither side have really looked like getting on top. Conditions against, really good play, but both sides have tried to spin it at times as well.
That's the voice of Dave Loveridge. Done. Just a little chip, that one, not quite intended to go that brief, I'm sure. The one man who's really throwing himself into the action is the Scottish number 6, the flanker David Leslie. You'll see him, he'll be the last one back. There he goes back to the side of the scrum. And he's really throwing his body into many aggressive positions. Well, Dalton lost the hook. He couldn't get the hook away. Now the ball like a fish on a wet plate. And that is really very hard indeed to pick up off the grass. A quick throw and the touch judge's flag is still up.
Well, it was
Scotland throw in, of course. That's Kerry Henderson, the reserve referee, who's the touch judge there. And Hud Rickett is doing particularly well in the lineouts. The count at the moment, 11-3. Rickett getting another, just a little deflection.
The All Blacks took advantage of that Scotland mess up behind the line. The ball went through. You've got to tow it ahead in conditions like this. It's very slippery. Just put the boot to it.
Oh, Mexted and Paxton disputing at the back of the line. This is Jefford. Time to switch it to Bruce Robertson. Jefford kicking through again. That might have been kicked. Maybe it was accidental offside. Kicked into Bruce Robertson. 8 minutes till half-time, approximately. Scott's backs are setting out well deep from the scrum. Lots happening on the far side on that front row there with Milne and Cattell's. Laidlaw caught by Murray. Leslie diving in for it. Number 6 is Mark Shaw. They try to keep him up for the ruck chance. Irvin and Fraser. Hewson kicking it ahead. The whistle has gone. Rennick and Hewson. Nice little touch. I'm sure the Scots wouldn't recognise Rod Cattell from the player in this international. A very disappointing tour for him to Scotland in 1979. He's having a difficult job with Ian Milne over on the far side. And that's one we'll really be able to look at in the second half, as it'll be on our side, as it were. So a short line-out call by New Zealand. says Ian Milne, the man they call the Bear. What a great run up to the halfway line. Didn't have much knee lift, but he got the big bulldozer movement, and that was a good run by Ian Milne, a clubmate of Andy Irvine at the Harriet's former pupils club in Edinburgh, and that was a good run up the centre. And Mark Shaw was the man who had to stop that 17-stone charging figure of Ian Milne. Hewson from halfway.
Good kick from Alan Houston. It's a long way across there. He had the wind behind him, but it's still a long way to that far touchline.
Ken Smith, the 1959 Lion to the left. Jim Telfer, who was here with the Lions in '66. They look very concerned about the situation. Dalton throws.
Well, that was one of the worst throws that Danny Dalton's ever made. The ball is so slippery, he's throwing it with one hand and just slipped completely out of his hand there.
Five minutes till half-time. See the New Zealand backs up flat, but a real struggle as the Scottish front row putting pressure on. Being matched by a lot of power from the All Blacks. Six is Leslie, four is Cuthbertson. Laidlaw with Dalton through on him.
Most scrums that Scotland had the ball to, either the flanker or the number 8, is protecting Laidlaw and picking the ball up from the back of that scrum. I don't know why they're doing that, though.
The line-out count is impressive in favour of the All Blacks. It's now 12-4. That was stolen by the Scottish players. That was Calder, I think, that did that in there, or Leslie from the number 6 position. Now Bernie Fraser gets up steam. Round in the corner. Now here's Mark Shaw. Jefford. Leslie, lost ball, Murray through. Bruce Hay back for the touchdown. Here they are at end on. It was Jefford who brought the ball forward, made the kick through, watching the flight path down. Touchdown for the 22. The ball has been kicked out on the full from some loose play from the dropout down at the 22. That's Jim Aiken to the right, Rod Patel's. Will Cuthbertson against Graham Higginson. 22-metre line. Knocked forward by the New Zealanders, knock on. It's one of the few times the game has been over in front of the terraces. Again, the right foot of Rutherford. Hewson. I think the other leg of his trousers is torn. Something went there. So we're going to have a change of shorts. Well, Graham Thorne, it's pretty grim and uncompromising in this match so far after 38 minutes.
Well, neither side is looking like getting on top, and though New Zealand has the elements at the moment, they're still not looking as if they're going to score a try. I think that the backs should try and keep possession more than actually kicking it ahead, like when Andy Jefford then kicked the ball up. It wasn't a bad kick, but with the loose forwards getting up behind him, he might be better to run at the Scots and try and set the play up again.
Peter Burke, watching his first international as the All Black coach. So Dave Loveridge is offside. Penalties in the first half. 6 awarded to New Zealand, 4 to Scotland. The 13th international today for John Rutherford. Dean's through on Loveridge. Loveridge off the grass to Dunn. He's kicked it just about every time. Milne lost it. Come to the All Blacks. Loveridge for Fraser and Munro. Very casual. Very fast runner, a leading try scorer in Scottish rugby in the past 2 seasons, Steve Munro. Half-time just seconds away with just a penalty to Alan Hewson. And that is half-time, I think. Yes, the whistle of Dick Byers from Australia blows, and just the penalty by Alan Hewson after 11 minutes. New Zealand at the break, lead by 3 points to 0. So it's Alan Hewson who begins the second half of this international from Carisbrook in Dunedin, the Edinburgh of the South, which has turned on very hospitable weather for the Scottish touring team as they played out the first 40 minutes, and New Zealand lead by 3 points to 0, just with the penalty by this man so far. So now the line-out ball might bounce about a bit more on the Scottish side if it's not claimed. Rickett getting high. There's Hayden Rickett, who replaced Andy Hayden, and he's done pretty well, giving Loveridge much better ball than the Scots halfback Roy Laidlaw has had. Murray mixed it off the back to Loveridge. Loose ball, Milne, number 3.
Well, that scrum there, Andy Dalton had his hand completely out of the scrum. He had one hand on the ground, the other hand hanging onto his loose head prop, and both his feet on the ground. So it's a wonder Dick Byers didn't penalise him.
Andy Irvin. Andy Irvin has been called the first nationally accepted sporting hero in Scotland, a land where the mainly young sportsmen's heroes are soccer players. Fine player. Difficult conditions for him today, though, in the wind and rain. Andy Dalton to throw. Mark Shaw from Mexted. Loveridge to Dunn. Jeopard. Not much for Bruce Robertson yet. He's had a walk-on, walk-off part. And this is a big chase back for Alan Hewson and Munro. Oh, a rather dangerous fly kick at the ball by Alan Hewson. With the ball so slippery, you've got to be very sure of one's throws, one's kicks out like that. Very fast winger, Steve Munro. And was that a try in the first half? It could be a telling factor in the end result. That decision by Dick Byers. Cuthbertson, Rutherford looking for space. Jim Aitken, number 1. Laidlaw, back to Rutherford again. Wilson under it. Brave catch, Rennick, number 12. Dunn, Robertson, Bernie Fraser. Bernie Fraser over there from the left wing, backing up his Wellington teammate Stu Wilson, who's the right winger.
I think the first 5 minutes of the second half are crucial for New Zealand to try and get on top very quickly. They've got this 5 minutes, which is usually crucial in a test match, where if they can get on top and get a try, the test could be decided.
That's Graham Higginson. Can they turn it around? Three minutes gone, second half. Loveridge, a great battle in the front row. So far, Deans has got one strike against the head when New Zealand weren't able to make a hook for it. Front row battle is very tough. Loveridge.
Dave Loveridge would be the best kicker from the base of the scrum along that short side on the ground of any halfback I've ever known. He just knows that there's a little gap along there, and there he gained 30 metres.
Cuthbertson. Penalty to Scotland. Looks like we might have a bit of a problem with the New Zealand team. Mark Shaw. Just have a look. He's there still, but there is a New Zealand player, Jeff Hines, warming up. And they think that Shaw might come off. Remember, he was in collision with Ian Milne after the big run up the centre.
There it is.
So Jeff Hines is under the stand warming up. So they may take Mark Shaw off the field. Let's just watch. Pressure now, Jefford and Murray. Higginson into Gary Knight again. There it is. Hands in the ruck from referee Dick Byers.
Well, for the first time in the second half, New Zealand looked as if they knew what it was all about. The ball was coming back well. They were charging through on Scotland and controlling the ball.
Well, we think it's Shaw who's not right. Very hard man, Mark Shaw, freezing worker from Kia Toa. 25 years of age, and it may be that he's going to go off. Hines is under the stand warming up. But the crowd out here don't know that. Dunn, Jefford, Robertson. Intercept. Munro towing ahead. The chase is on. Jefford and Munro. Now what's Dick Byers say here? Munro, and I think Munro did the wrong thing.
Yes, he should have just towed it over that 2 metres and fallen on the ball when he tried to pick it up. It couldn't be lack of experience, surely. But if you watch, it was the tackle on Bruce Robertson as he kicked. Jefford didn't have the pace, and Munro tried to pick the ball up. It's too greasy to pick up, and he knocked it on.
Jefford. Irvin with a drop kick. Robertson, here's a chance for New Zealand. Robertson hoofs it up the field. Now Fraser's coming through on Munro and Cranston. And Cranston and Fraser and Munro.
Well, Bernie Fraser was in the right there because the Scottish player coming back was trying to obstruct him. He saw Fraser behind him and he actually ran in front of him.
Fraser is being spoken to. Murray, I think, being called out. Fraser's pretty angry.
If you watch now the player coming into your picture on the right and see him running in front of Bernie Fraser, and Bernie Fraser pushed him out of the way in desperation. And if you watch now, Munro actually pulls him by the hair. Charming fellow.
Well, Bernie Fraser coming back to position. A fiery customer is Bernie Fraser. The match restarts with the crowd cheering to warm themselves up and to warm the New Zealanders, I'm sure, on the field. Dunn. And a late charge on Dunn from Deans. What does referee Byers say? He hasn't ruled on that one. There's the man, Colin Deans, looked to be latish, shall we say, through on Eddie Dunn. Let's look at it again. Dunn with the ball. There's the kick. Well, maybe it was all right on second viewing. Kicked on behind Laidlaw. Munro coming across.
I think perhaps now that Munro missed that try, New Zealand realised that it only needs a drop pass, a kick through like that, and they could be 3 points in arrears. So they're trying to lift their game up now, and even the urgency's coming from the New Zealand side.
That's Paxton and Mexted. Goal line in the background. Ten minutes gone, second half. No tries yet in the game, but we've had controversy. The score in the corner, the attempted score in the corner in the first half by Steve Munro, and a close one again involving Munro in the second half. And Munro made what looked like a bad error of judgment. Loveridge, Fraser. Caught by Jim Coleman. Fraser got up. Murray, Loveridge. That's the goal line ahead. Gary Knight. Driving off Knight. Fraser in there trying to ruck the ball. Now is it there? Mark Shaw digging deep.
Good play by Bernie Fraser there, keeping on his feet and turning the ball round. Graham Murray with him and then getting it back to Loveridge. Loveridge keeping it tight in with the forwards because the momentum was going forward.
3-0 to New Zealand. 10 minutes, second half. Mexted, they're trying to drive him over. It's one that the All Blacks perfected in Wales and Canada last year. And Shaw, number 6, was the man who helped. An update from under the stand. Jeff Hines is still there, warming up. Goal line right there. Holding it, Murray. Fraser joining in from the wing. Bernie Fraser adding his weight. Murray is off. Fraser still in that forward move. Murray.
Well, the All Black captain trying to keep the ball very close to that scrum. He doesn't want the ball out in the middle. He wants to play it tight.
Scotland ball in very close to their own line.
And Andy Hayden may even kick the ball through here. Andy Dalton.
Well, let's see. Is that a try? It's a try for Loveridge. The ball must have passed over the line. The scrum is therefore finished. Therefore, the try is allowed. We may get a better view of that end on. Let's see. Watch number 9, Loveridge, bending over. And then the ball is dived on by Loveridge, obscured to us, and the try is scored.
Well, the moment the ball goes over the goal line, it's not a scrum. There's no hands in the scrum once it's over. It's free for anyone to touch. And Loveridge, quick thinking, was able to just plonk his hand on it for the try.
Oh, across the front, and Hewson misses that one. 7 points to 0.
We'll see it now. It's Scotland put in. Now you see the white line, which is the goal line there. The scrum moving around a bit. And Andy Dalton may have kicked it through to give it a little bit of added impetus. There it goes in. Now watch, it comes over, and that's what happened. The locks and the number 8 couldn't get their hands down to get the ball. Laidlaw was confused, and Loveridge, like a dash, was in to put the hand on the ball for the try. Good thinking.
So the kickoff has gone out there. New Zealand 7, Scotland 0. 14 minutes, second half. Dalton through. Jim Calder. That's Leslie. It's lost to the New Zealanders. Cattell's. Loveridge. Dunn. Good little kick. Picked his spot nicely. Irvin. Bruce Robertson. Laidlaw. Caught by Dalton and Murray, the senior pros of the All Black forward pack. Loveridge. Mixted. So the All Blacks are running in the fast lane at the moment, and Dave Loveridge scored the try. Remember, he got one very similar against Monmouthshire in the 1978 tour by diving in at the side. 7 points to 0, and with the try, the momentum of the game turning over better for the New Zealand team.
And once again, Irvin trying to do too much on his own and paid the penalty, and New Zealand are in a fantastic position again.
So an injury break there. The New Zealand scrum forming up, and Colin Deans is a little slow back. Good hook by Dalton. Loveridge, the pressure is coming from New Zealand. A move involving Bruce Robertson. Has he got a man to flip it to? Mixted is there. Now the ruck is on. Loveridge. Hands ahead. Higginson. Goal line there. Murray. Loveridge done. Hewson. Murray. Loveridge. Jeppard. Long cut-out pass. Wilson. Here it is again. It was a result of tremendous build-up involving mostly Murray and Loveridge. This is the end of it, with Andy Jeppard out to Stuart Wilson, and another test match try for the Flying Wellington winger.
Well, it seems like the New Zealand performance has gone up a notch since they scored that try by Loveridge. They know that they have got the better of them now, and they are trying to spin the ball more, but they are setting it up, and that's what it's all about, setting play up. And there were 3 mauls, rucks there where they got control, and in the end they had a 3-on-2 situation. Well, that was a good kick by Hewson. It's just away, 11-0. Well, it was set up Andy Jefford. There was a 3-on-2 here, but he threw the ball right over the top. Good thinking to Stu Wilson, who was in the clear. A desperate dive by Hay, but he was over in the corner.
So the kick-off is a bad one. New Zealand will have the choice, and Higginson and Deans from the kick-off. There's big, tough Graham Higginson from Culverden.
But the frustration's coming out now on the Scottish side. 2 tries in the space of 5 minutes.
18 minutes gone, second half. Scrum at halfway. Loveridge, who's come into his own the last few minutes. Jefford. Hay going back. Andy Jefford had an interesting life just after he left Wanganui Collegiate. He went to the Solomon Islands on a VSA scholarship. Then he had 4 years at Lincoln College. Played for the Glenmark Club in North Canterbury with Alec Wiley. And now back in the East Coast. There'll be a lot of happiness up there today, I'm sure. Mark Shaw. Still haven't seen any update on that news under the stand about a possible injury to Shaw. Loveridge, he's got time to consider his options there. The line-out count is still 2-1 in the ratio to the New Zealanders. 18 clean balls to the All Blacks, 9 to Scotland. And the All Blacks have had more ball to play with. Gary Knight driving, it's over the touchline. Let's watch the position of Stuart Wilson in this New Zealand line. You see, he was actually in the previous move at the centre. He is wandering back towards the right wing there. Scotland throw in. Loveridge, beautifully off the ground. Wilson. Loveridge, narrow side, done. That was Stuart Wilson's 8th try in Test rugby. Takes him on to number 6 in the all-time list for All Black tries and tests. Wind is really whipping around here at Dunedin now. Jefford, Robertson, casting a crash roll there. Rutherford.
Well, the All Black back line was only half paced then. They were very flat. They looked like they were going through the motions, and the Scottish backs were up on crashing them, and suddenly the ball was kicked away, slippery ball, and now New Zealand are back on defence.
3/4 of the game is over. Bill Cuthbertson, Ian Milne, some worried looks now. 11 points in arrears. Short and fast towards Higginson. Deans through. Colin Deans looked like he's ruled offside. This is the man someone once said to him at school that he's too fat to play rugby. But he's certainly turned into a very fine athlete, and having his 16th international today. Times have been hard for the Scottish team. Times have been hard over the years. Colin Deans, in fact, played 11 internationals before he was in the winning Scottish team. So Deans to throw. Palm by Toombs to Cuthbertson. Laidlaw. Rutherford. Good run through the gap. Nice work, Cranston. The 2 men out to the left. One is Irvin.
Well, the gap was big enough to drive a horse and cart through, and Cranston was up with him. It's the first time that Rutherford's looked like running. And outside him was Cranston, and Scotland looked dangerous the first time in the second half.
Leslie off to a fly half position. Tackled by two men, Murray and Jeppard. Higginson mauling it. Loveridge. Done for Wilson's swing. Bouncing the ducks.
And that was very close to being a late tackle again. He done. Deems round and put the shoulder in, just a shade late, as First Salvations don't like this done to them.
Big long throw in the wind. Milne peeling, lost it. Advantage applying. Evan picking it off the grass, a mistake. Knock on. Now we remember the one that Andy Irvin flipped forward and Gary Sear scored a try from the resulting scrum in 78. And again, there was another example too in North Auckland on the 77 Lions too, and David Haynes scored. Irvin just a little casual, picking up this slippery piece of soap off the grass. Driving from the scrum towards the line. Let's see who gets the loose head. One for Scotland. There's a punch in there. Injured man is David Leslie. Man who's had a lot of trouble with injuries. He missed the best part of 3 full seasons with various injuries. But the action is going to start again. The referee has come back to the centre. It's going to be a scrum. Dick Byers refereeing his 6th international. Refereed the All Blacks twice before, in 1979 and 1980. A loose head for the All Blacks. Eddie Dunn, been a drop kicker, but perhaps not on a day like today. Good scrum from Scotland. Eddie Dunn, there goes the drop kick. Low. Cuthbertson. What's referee Byers saying here?
Offside. He's got the choice of the kick or the scrum back. They take it, or the kick forward or the scrum back. They're taking the kick. But the All Black side in the second half has looked completely different from the one in the first half when they had the elements. They are committed to that loose ball and getting it back to Dave Loveridge, although their scrum is still not as good as probably Bryce Rope and Co would like.
10-metre mark, Scotland territory. Bill Cuthbertson on the peel. That's Ian Paxton. Thrown down by Higginson. Good set up for Laidlaw. Wilson under it. Murray got it from Wilson for the charge. $14 minutes to go, 2 second half tries to Loveridge and Wilson, plus the first half penalty to Alan Hewson. So worrying time for Andy Evans. Scotland, remember, have never beaten the All Blacks in a test, and as we stand right now, Scotland have never scored a point in an international in New Zealand. Now beaten 24-0 at Auckland in 1975. That one wasn't straight. Cold afternoon, Temperatures about 8 degrees at kick-off time. Rutherford, he's getting through. That's Murray, slip Murray. John Rutherford, halfway, a line up to the left, Deans. Wilson, awkward bouncing ball. Cranston, it's lost. Can they control it? Now he was in front. Leslie was in front. And thus Scotland again have been denied a try. But I think Dick Byers was correct in that ruling. This is the last little bit of that. With Deans kicking ahead, all sorts of bother for the All Blacks. Stu Wilson in particular, but watch the position of Leslie. He was ahead of the kicker, quite definitely. No try. He was offside.
I think it may have been a mistake for Deans to kick the ball. They were going so well, the momentum was going on. He kicked it, they nearly scored a try, but he had men all round him to pass to.
Deans making the throw, palmed by Cuthbertson. Away to Rutherford, who's a lovely runner, and he seems to be able to get through. Bruce Hay lost it. That's another one the Scots have lost. And Rutherford looking across at Bruce Hay as if to say, well, I gave it to you. And that's two telling breaks by number 10, John Rutherford. And Mark Shaw in a tussle here with Aitken.
Well, in test matches, you don't get many chances to score tries. In this test, Scotland have had 3 chances to score, and 3 times they've knocked the ball on or been offside.
Well, also, Graham, of course, there was the one with Munro under the posts. There was the one with Dave Leslie, the one with Bruce Hay, and then there was the first half one where Munro looked as though he might have gone in the corner.
We watch this one again where the kick goes ahead. Bernie Fraser just affects Colin Deans. Stu Wilson's in all sorts of trouble. Rutherford toes it on, but David Leslie was offside in front of the man that last played the ball.
That was late in appearance, that tackle on Dunn. Again, not ruled by Australian referee Dick Byers. Here's Eddie Dunn, just his second test match. Been around an awful long time, but he's only 26 years of age. Deans throws. Scotland done a little bit of the line-up. Deans through again, very fast with Paxton. Deans again. Try for Colin Deans, and he did it all on his own.
Well, Colin Deans finally got the try, but he may have just been in front of the man that kicked the ball. If we watch it on the replay to actually what happened. See the kicking, see Deans is in front of Paxton, and no New Zealand player touched the ball, and Deans continued to kick it ahead, and then waited for it, and then dived for it to get the try.
So Colin Deans scores the try to 31 minutes of play. Irvin with the kick, low and flat, 11 points to 4. Remember, that's the first points Scotland have ever scored in an international in New Zealand. Looking at it again, remember in the old days in Scotland they used to say feet, feet, and Paxton plays the ball, and from that angle it's hard to see whether Deans was ahead, but this is the finishing part where he finished it off for the try which was awarded. Rutherford, very skillful player, let it bounce off his body. 7-point margin to New Zealand with 8 points to go, 8 minutes to go. They're still outside the 6 points. Scotland has got to score at least twice to get ahead. But they're a side, as they've shown in the last few minutes, with tremendous spirit. They've come back well. David Leslie, who's had an excellent game. Laidlaw, Rutherford, Cranston. There's some lapses in the All Black tackling in the last few minutes. That's Rutherford twice, and now Cranston allowed to move. Laidlaw. And again, really, Jim Rennick, who hasn't had much to do. Midfield, still in Scottish territory. They've got it. Calder plays halfback. Jim Rennick. Cranston, his Hoyk teammate, shifted out quickly to Bruce Hay on the left wing. He's put it inside. Mark Shaw knocked it down. Knock on.
Well, Scotland now looking a side that can win this test match. Confidence breeds confidence, success breeds success, and they look as if they've taken just a few marks out of the All Black forwards book.
Calder again. Switched out towards Cranston. Rennick. Oh, he's through the gap and allowed to run. Whether it came off his knees, the whistle's gone. He just touched it with his hands, and up go the arms in supplication. Let's look at it again. Another lovely run by Rennick. Irvin is on his inside. He was originally the decoy in the move, and when the pass comes, it just tips off his hand first. Six minutes to go. Scotland could easily be ahead if the bounce of the ball had gone different to the way history will have seen it. And there'll be some inquiries about the New Zealand defence. 5 minutes to go. Rutherford. Well, Munro stayed out. Rutherford again. Flipped up to Ian Mill. Forward pass. Munro elected to come on the inside. Looked to be a wee bit of room still wide out. He's got a lot of toe. Jefford. Fine kick by Andy Jefford, 28 years of age today, clearing the ball from in front of his post, a long kick across field to the 10-metre mark.
New Zealand under a lot of pressure for the last 5 minutes. Now they're out towards halfway. They've got to start to take control again.
Loveridge. Bruce Hay. Bruce Hay back in the kind of fullback's role, where of course he was picked for 2 Lions tours as a fullback, and he's probably more suited with his build, short and stocky and barrelly, as a fullback rather than the wing. But he's had a fine long career for the Scots on the wing. 4 minutes to go in the game. New Zealand leading by 11 points to 4. We've had 3 tries, all in the second half. Put through by Calder and Aitken. So the big crowd here have thoroughly enjoyed this match. I think they've enjoyed it more because New Zealand have been ahead, and there have been worrying times in the last few minutes from what they've seen as the Scots have run it and run them ragged in midfield.
Yes, the tackling has left a lot to be desired, both from the flankers and the midfield backs. There's been far too many tackles missed.
See that? Now Rutherford turned it in there, just showing their desire to create more chances in these last moments. Laidlaw to Rutherford. He has a look, just a little variation. Murray hit by Cranston and Rutherford. Loose ball. Alan Tomes trying to claim it. Hands scratching around for it. A bleak Dunedin day. And a bustling game of rugby, which the All Blacks have at the moment their way by 11-4. Mark Shaw. There seemed to be quite a chance that Shaw would go off for a while, but he didn't. Hines was underneath the stand for a long, long time, warming up. Laidlaw. Rutherford. Look at that. He's a lovely mover. This is Leslie. Laidlaw. Urban up. Cranston. Picked up by Irvin, trying to find space. Rennick. Rutherford. Munro. Hewson not at home. Dunn was missed. Murray trying to save it. Higginson. Loveridge. Dunn. Fraser. Fraser at halfway to Dunn. Knock on. Fraser hasn't had many chances to show his aggressive bursting power, but that was one of them. But questions being asked about the All Blacks defence as the Scots run it to them, and I think the big thing is what a game this would have been if it had been a dry day. And again. We're in the last minute of play.
I think questions are going to be asked by the three selectors about the standard of the tackling. New Zealand could have blown this game on many occasions by not tackling.
Roy Laidlaw out to the man of the match, John Rutherford. He's certainly had a fine one. Jeppard makes a tackle on Rennick. Maxted. Advantage could be applying here. Well, we're running into injury time now. Well, Scotland have had some great chances in this match. Remember the two incidents involving Steve Munro, David Leslie, and Bruce Hay lost one. Andy Irvin lost one. And they ran the ball boldly in the last quarter of an hour, but couldn't get through for more than one try. And the game is now well into injury time, and they are still 7 points in arrears. The lineouts 22-13 and clean ball to New Zealand. Kicked back by Toombs. Penalty New Zealand. There haven't been many penalties in the second half. And New Zealand are calling Hewson over to take a shot for goal. Test match rugby. This is serious stuff. And Hewson, or Murray, I suppose, being booed for having a shot at goal.
Yes, it's test match conditions, but the time is well over the 40 minutes. Scotland can't win the game. New Zealand could have just kicked the ball out or even gone for a charge up the middle with the forwards. It's very disconcerting for a chap like Alan Hewson, who's kicking with the crowd booing. It's not his decision. The captain told him to have a kick at goal. He only has to obey the captain.
So there's the view of what could be the last play of this dramatic test match. Alan Hewson. Hit the post, bounced back into play, and Fraser lost it forward. And the match is over. That kick at goal bounced off the post
Fraser nearly went over for the try, but the whistle went there, and New Zealand won it by 11 points to 4. There were 3 tries all in the second half to Loveridge, Wilson and Colin Deans for Scotland. But with the scoreline at 11 to 4, a summary of the game might be that the Scotsmen missed opportunities. 5 times they went so close to scoring, and the result
could have been a lot different. There's Stu Wilson, who scored the try that put New Zealand out to the winning lead of 11 points to 4.
Well, New Zealand was the team that won the test match, but it could have gone the other way so easily. Scotland had 4 opportunities to score tries. They blew them all. New Zealand only had 2 opportunities to score tries. They took both opportunities, and so they got the 11 points. Next week at Auckland, it may be on a fine day, a different story. The tackling left a lot to be desired, and I'm sure the 3 All Black selectors will be having a little talk to some of the backs for their defensive mistakes. But the Scottish side were not disgraced. They played up to the level that we thought they were going to. If they'd taken those chances, the result may have been completely different.
There they come, the men who battled so boldly for Scotland, especially in the second half. A lot of disappointment, and Andy Evan saying it all with that gesture on John Rutherford, who had such a great day for the Scottish team today. And this is what it's all about, really. The Scottish team clapping the All Blacks in underneath the stand. So the Scots team move off, and outside the fans move away to warmer things, I'm sure. The result of the game, 11 points to 4. New Zealand 1 up in the 2 test series. Tries to Loveridge and Wilson for New Zealand, a penalty to Hewson, and for Scotland a try to the hooker Colin Deans. Underneath the stand, Peter Williams has the captains from today's international.
Graham Murray, congratulations. Rather a muddling game in the first half, but perhaps the New Zealand forwards gradually got more control in the second 40 minutes.
Well, I think except for the last 10 minutes, you know, as you said, the first half was backwards and forwards, and I felt we had about 10 or 15 minutes in the second half there where we got on top and were able to pin them down there and score the points, and then we tackled poorly for the last 10 minutes, and they came right back into the game. But you know, I think the score was a reasonable indication. There wasn't much in it right through. It could have gone either way.
Andy Graham said the score's a reasonable indication. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I don't think we could argue. We had our chances, but we didn't take them. With 3 or 4 close things, had we got scores, it may have made a difference.
In the first half, there was an opportunity for a try just down in front of the main stand. Did you think that perhaps you had forced it correctly?
Well, I don't know. I was 30 yards away. I need to speak to
It was Steve Munro, but I was sitting up in the main stand. It looked like a double movement for a rabbiting from where I was.
Well, I don't know. We had 2 or 3 close shaves, but at the end of the day, we didn't take our chances, and I don't think we've any grouses to make.
And Graham Murray, you mentioned the dominance that Scotland seemed to get in the last few minutes. Are you worried about that midfield tackling? There seemed to be an awful lot of gaps that appeared, particularly with that brilliant run of Jim Rennicks.
Not so much the midfield tackling. It was just a lapse of concentration right through the whole team, because forwards missed tackles and backs missed tackles, and against Jim and Andy and these guys, you can't afford to do that, because you give them 20 yards and they're gone. So even the hookers are quick.
What about the wet field? Did that have any effect on your play, Andy? Would you have preferred a dry field?
I'm sure both sides would have preferred a dry field. It could have been a good game, but in these conditions it was very tricky to pass the ball.
I think the last few games we've played, last 4 tests we've played, the Scots have brought bad weather 3 times. So, it would be better with dry weather. I think we both like to move the ball.
Do you think you got enough out of this game to feel confident about going into next week's test at Eden Park?
I don't think we can be confident, because we're well beaten on the day, but at the end there we knew what we showed what we can do, and I think if we come out next week with that attitude, we could spring a surprise.
And Graham, Eden Park has been a hell of a graveyard for the All Black teams over the last few tests. I'm thinking of 78 and 79 in particular. How do you feel about the prospects for next Saturday?
I think we know that we've got a lot of work to do. Obviously, it's pleasing to win, but as you saw today, the game could have gone either way, and that's not good enough.
You don't want the rain that you had in 75, or that the All Blacks had in 75 there?
Well, obviously we'd like fine conditions, but I think we'll be looking for an improved performance on today.
Graham Murray and Andy Evan, thank you very much for your time after the match, and all the best for both teams for next Saturday.